Laura Richardson with Relevate. We are real estate elevated, and I have the opportunity today to talk to somebody who owns a business that tackles pretty much every avenue of real estate. When you're talking about folks who currently live in their home versus people who are looking to list and sell that home. So Glenn Wylie, one of the owners of ReDefine, is actually here with me. So I'm actually going to turn it over to him to give you a little bit of backstory into how he got into this incredible industry. Glenn, thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. This kind of happened organically about 15 years ago. We had two young girls. I was working full time, but my wife needed something to do.
Okay.
And she is outstanding at interior design. She just has an absolute flair for it. So we thought, you know what? Why don't we start an interior design company for her? And it kind of got off very slowly at first, and then there was the recession, and it just kind of plodded along. And then we added staging in 2014, and that sort of they wound up fueling one another. And about 6-7 years ago, I quit my job and came to work full time for our company because it was taking off so much.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about each piece of their business. And guys, if you get the opportunity to meet his better half, she is absolutely outstanding. So if you talk about two people that have created a business, that two sides of the business complement each other, he and his wife also very much so complement each other and make the whole experience incredible. So let's talk about the interior design piece. And then I also really want to talk about the staging side of things, because obviously that really speaks to what I do on the listing side.
Sure.
So when somebody is looking to redesign a space, obviously the projects can vary between really small and then a full renovation. So where do you guys fall in that kind of gamut in that timeline?
As far as the timeline is concerned, the sooner we can get in there, the better. I'm sure you've experienced this in what you do. Contractors are really busy.
Yes.
So, if we have to have contractors involved, which any medium to larger project is probably going to have contractors involved, they're anywhere from 30 to 90 days out. To get them started on a project. If there's not going to be a contractor involved, or if there are components to the project that we can get started on before the contractor gets going, then often we can get going within 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah. So something I'm sure you get asked a lot, right? And same thing when I go to list a house and people want immediate numbers on what this is going to cost. How often do you guys get asked, okay, I want to do a bathroom renovation. What is it going to cost me?
Sure. Every time. And, usually the way it starts is they'll say, okay, here's what I want to do. And we'll say, well, okay, great. What is your budget? And they'll say, I have no idea.
Yes.
I have no clue. What does something like this cost? Now we can, a lot of times we can give a very rough guesstimate with a big range, depending upon what they're looking to get done. But as far as coming up with real numbers, that we have to actually get started on the project.
Absolutely. So is there something in a project where people tend to spend the most money on? Let me give you an example. So if they're redesigning, let's say a dining room space, the light fixture could really take that project from this amount to this amount. Do you guys see people trying to cut corners necessarily on their budget, especially with the DIY era? I feel like a lot of people are trying to scale down versus really going for the wow factor and the impact of the project.
Yeah, sure. So if a client wants to do an aspect of a project themselves, that's potentially fine, but we won't combine our contractor with them DIYing part of that as well. Either we're doing it or we're not doing it.
Yeah.
As far as where they cut corners, it just really depends on the client. For instance, a kitchen remodel can be one of the most expensive, if not the most expensive thing that you could do in your home as far as a remodel is concerned. By the time we get to selecting the appliances, that may be an area where because you could spend a lot of money on appliances, or you could spend a lot of money on appliances. So
GE
it,
versus Viking.
yeah,
I mean,
right. So, but there is such a wide range there. But, cabinetry is so expensive,
hmm
especially custom cabinetry is very expensive. High end granite or quartz.
hmm
So, that would be a great place, that someone could look at. Because, for instance, granite, all granite is granite, but the price depends upon the beauty of the
hmm
granite. It doesn't mean it's in a better quality product.
Yeah.
It's just is how beautiful the actual granite is. And so the more beautiful the granite, more it's going to cost. And
Yeah.
there can be a wide range there. So that is an area that they may kind of look at to save some money.
Well, and I'm sure you guys too kind of have to do a little bit of curbing on expectation here because sometimes people think they're going to save money by doing something that it's actually going to cost them more in the long run. Because I know I see this a lot when I work with clients who are building a home, right?
Hmm.
They
Sure.
try to save money by not paying for it up front, but what they're not kind of putting into the cost is labor or even the supply of the materials are going to increase between now and potentially later.
Yeah, you're almost certainly going to spend more to do it after you buy a home
Mm-hmm.
than if it's already in the home. Maybe it's a few years old.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not exactly the way you want it, but you're almost certainly going to spend more to put a new kitchen in than if you buy a home with that has a kitchen with the stuff that you want.
Sure. So let's wrap up the buy side really fast because I definitely want to talk about the listing side of things.
Hmm.
So, on the buy side, when somebody goes under contract on a house, they probably already are looking at all the projects that they want and
Sure.
they're in their brains kind of constituting what I'm going to tackle in what order. Is that the time that they want to reach out to you or is it after they close? What's the best opportunity?
Yeah, they would be a good idea to reach out to us before closing, as early in the process as possible. If we are able to, usually the buyer has the ability to get into the home,
Mm-hmm.
before they close on a, reasonable basis, and so we may go in there with them. Most of the time, they're calling us after they close, and sometimes they call
Mm-hmm.
us, months after they close. But if they have projects that they know they want to do, and they want to at least start figuring all of that out, then getting us in there as soon as they put the property under contract is the
Mm-hmm.
way to go.
And guys, there's an easy way to coordinate that. When you're getting in and doing your inspections, that's often a great time to get your vendors in to go ahead and start getting you quotes so that you can map out that timeline. And as I said earlier, booking those contractors is really important to go ahead and get those things scheduled so that you can kind of shorten that timeline once you know what you're doing. Also, there's a design phase in a lot of things, and you want to be able to talk through that. So why not go ahead and knock that out in your contract period so you can commit to those projects once you close? So now that we've bought the house, we've lived in it for the average 5 to 7 years, it's now time to sell.
Uh-huh.
So let's get to the listing side.
Sure.
So, how do you guys work when it comes to the staging aspect? Because I want to talk about the impact of staging for sure.
Yeah.
But what is the process like when they're trying to get their home staged? Where do you guys fit into that?
Sure. So yeah, we kind of categorize sellers in two basic camps: those that are going to be living in the home while it's on the market,
Okay.
and those that are not going to be living in the home when it's on the market. If they're going to be living in the home while it's on the market, then what we do to get started with them is a simple consultation.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually about an hour, and we go in. One of our stagers goes in. I don't do it myself.
Yeah.
One of our stagers goes in and walks the inside and outside of the
Okay.
property with them, helps them put together a to-do list of all those things that you want them to get done: depersonalizing,
Mm-hmm.
decluttering, just making sure that the home is going to look its best for pictures and showings.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they may need, even if they're going to be living in the house, they may need some more help beyond just the consultation.
Yeah.
And we provide a customized proposal to provide additional services that might include bringing in artwork and accessories
Mm-hmm.
and things like that we're going to bring in that are going to go with the decor of the home and make sure that it is going to show well for pictures and showings. And
Mm-hmm.
we'll arrange the furniture as well, too, in those circumstances.
Yeah. So speaking of furniture, so there's different levels of staging.
Yeah.
So obviously you have soft staging where it's just a couple of pieces here and there
Yeah.
having the walls and the space. And then
Mhm.
you have full blown staging where you're
Yeah.
bringing in furniture.
Yeah.
Can you speak to what level you guys actually cover?
Yeah, so we do all of it, and there are situations where they're going to be living in a home, but they're under furnished,
Yes.
and so we will, in those circumstances, we can provide a proposal to bring in furnishings. Most of the time, when we're bringing actual furniture in, it's when the homeowner has moved out or is going to move out before
Yeah.
it goes on the market, and then we are going to stage with furniture, accessories, artwork, rugs, lamps, books, the tchotchke for the
Yeah.
shelves,
Uh-huh.
and all of that fun stuff. And as far as how much we're going to stage, it typically we always start with what we like to call the heart of the home: family room, kitchen, dining room,
Yep.
breakfast nook. If there's an office, that's a good thing to stage. Master bedroom is always a great thing to stage. We do have some realtor clients that like to stage every room in the home. It's not always necessary, but we have beds from king size down to twins.
Yeah.
We can basically stage any room in the house. It just depends on what's needed.
So now that we understand the process, let's talk about the importance. So, as a listing agent, somebody who's in the staging industry, we have obviously the need for a home to be vacant if possible, because vacant homes tend to sell quicker and at a higher price point. I think the average is like 17% or something like that. But needless to say, staging the home is important for not only the photography and the videography, should you choose to do that, but also just the experience in the home. So,
Yeah.
can you talk about how staging kind of validates the purchase that the buyer then sees?
Yeah, so a home that's empty, and as opposed to a home being filled with all of the seller's stuff, maybe too much stuff, maybe too much clutter, maybe of a particular design style or taste that may not appeal to a wide range of buyers. It would be better for it to be just completely empty. No question about it.
Oh, yeah.
But better than that is all the seller stuff out, and then tastefully staged to that complements the style of the home. And what first of all, empty rooms appear smaller. They lack a point of reference. And when rooms are empty, potential buyers tend to focus on the imperfections.
Yes.
Right? So we want to bring in just the right amount and size of furniture to create a focal point, to add color and softness, and to give that warm feeling. Because an empty house feels cold.
Yeah, for sure.
When it has the nice furniture, artwork, and it creates a warm feeling, and the buyer is more likely. In fact, according to the National Association of Realtors, 80% of buyers have an easier time envisioning a home as their future home if it's properly staged.
I mean, I can definitely attest to that, being on both sides of the table, right? Dealing with buyers and with listings. That's definitely something we see. And you talked about the imperfections in the room, for example. When a buyer sees imperfections that may not be obvious, but it's obvious to them, they then start going down the rabbit hole of, okay, well, if they didn't fix this, what didn't they fix that maybe isn't so obvious that I can't see? So it kind of creates a downward spiral. It's really important to highlight the space as well for depth of space. So you think about 2D photos, the amount of people who are moving here from elsewhere and maybe can't physically walk the property, they're relying on those photos. And I can't tell you the number of times I've talked to buyers who are like, I have no idea how big that room is.
If it's empty, it's really hard to tell from a photograph.
It really is. And then also with the staging, appealing to the 80% buyer pool versus the 20%. Sometimes I've walked into clients' homes where it is meticulously maintained. It is beautiful decor, but it's not going to appeal to 80% of buyers. So we're kind of kicking ourselves in the tail from the get by only appealing to that smaller buyer pool. So staging is crucial in so many different capacities. So let's kind of talk about the elephant in the room. Often people try to argue this point. I don't want to pay for staging. I don't necessarily think it's worth this extra cost because they're already paying for some other things with home prep. So how do you combat that? Because I know how I would answer that.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things we address there. One is that you only have one opportunity to make a first impression. And you're not going to have a better opportunity to sell that house than when it first hits the market.
Absolutely.
I don't have to tell you this, you know this. And if you misstep there, it's going to get harder, not easier.
Yep.
So you absolutely want to put your best foot forward. You want to pull out all the guns. You want to, if it needs fresh paint, you want to do the fresh paint. If there needs to be repairs done, you want to do all that. You want a nice clean slate, and then that staging just absolutely finishes it off, so that when the pictures and the in-person viewings are going to give the very best impression. The other thing we'd say is, let's say you have a $800,000 home, which is certainly not uncommon in this market.
I know.
If you have to do a price drop, what is that going to be? I mean, what's a reasonable price drop on an $800,000 home if you're not getting showings? It's going to be at least $10,000, if not $25,000 or more.
Yep.
So a couple of $1,000s on staging is going to cost you a whole lot less than a price drop.
Well, and something that we haven't kind of talked about is the fact that you want to create competition. So if you're driving the foot traffic in that first weekend, hopefully, or at least the first couple of weeks, depending on the area, driving the foot traffic to be able to create buyer versus buyer scenario, which is a multiple offer scenario, obviously that's going to continue to bump that price up for the purchase price. So staging can be a huge driver, not only to the listing, but then taking the listings exponentially when you talk about finances. So is there any other aspect of y'all's business besides the interior design or the staging aspect that you'd like to speak to? Something that you help with either the community or just in the process of buying and selling?
Well, I mentioned this a lot in our meetings. One of the things we love doing on the design side is floor planning and furniture procurement. This is we can procure furniture, accessories, and artwork for much less than what a client can get them for, and often pass on some of that savings to them. Of course, we're making money in this process, but we're going to make sure that everything that they buy is going to fit perfectly in their house. It's going to go with their style and their decor, and when we bring it all together, we install everything, it's going to be absolutely gorgeous. So we love doing furniture, and that's something that we're really good at.
Well, and I think that's also another aspect that people think about almost too late. Like, for example, if you're building a home, so involving you guys in that initial process, because you think about certain things that you can't change later, like where wall placement is or window placement, and how that can actually relate to y'all's part of the process. So that would be kind of cool to have that bridge and everybody in that initial meeting.
Yes, indeed.
So, well, Glenn, we really appreciate you being here. Guys, his information for their company is going to be in the bottom of this episode, so you can reach out to him and Sam, whether it's interior design or staging, to make sure that you're making the most bang for your buck when it comes to listing your home. Their knowledge and expertise will help you take it to the next level. I am Laura Richardson with Relevate. All right, y'all, thank you for joining us today. Be sure to like, share, and follow us on Instagram as well as YouTube. We're also on Apple Podcasts. Again, I'm Laura Richardson with Relevate.